And so with these two channels defining life force within the transits, we have this intuition that is gently penetrating into the knowledge, fixed with the ability to express itself. And on the other side, we have the willingness to respond to shock and jump into the void. Hello there, and welcome to the show. Today I was about to record another session of Third Lining It, where I talk about the not self and what not to do. However, I had noticed this wave of energy coming through me, and it was something that I couldn't easily ignore. It was something that was obvious and apparent in my face. And so I've shifted my gears into this transit chart you can see over here on my left. This shows the current transit for today. This is April 11th of 2024. And this is what we're looking at today and right now. To me, this was very profound. And we'll get into more of why this was specifically profound for me personally a little bit later. First off, I want to speak about why and how this transit itself is profound, fundamentally. And so the first thing that strikes me is this heart center over here. You see this red triangle. This heart center is defined to the G center, this diamond that's yellow in the middle. And this is through the channel of initiation, this 2551. This channel is about diving into the void. This is about being first. This is about competition. The 51 is the gall and the shock of the ego and the heart to actually jump into the 25. And the 25 represents the physical universe itself, because the 25 is within every single piece of matter that exists in the physical world. It exists because the 25 is its hanging gate. And so this is called as the blood of the universe. And this 2551 brings this deep power of competitiveness, competition, and the drive to be first, this initiation into something that is unknown, jumping into the unknown of the material world itself. And as Terence McKenna would put it, discovering it's a featherbed. You know, this life is not the most terrifying thing. It's not actually trying to kill you, no matter what your mind likes to think about it. This 2551 gives us the courage to jump into the unknown and recognize that it's actually safe. It's okay to go through experiences that could be called crisis. It's okay to jump into the unknown, because this is how we learn. And so over here on the other side, you'll see there is the 2057 connecting the spleen with the throat center. And so this 2057 is called the brainwave. The 57 is a gate of deep instinct, deep intuition, this sense of being able to gently penetrate into what is true. And the 20 is right now. It is the expression of right now, a unique expression of this moment. It is perhaps one of the most existential gates of the entire body graph. And so when we have this 5720 as a definition, as a life force coming through the transits, this brings the ability to recognize and speak with intuition something you had not seen before. To recognize, whoa, I can see this now. Like, whoa, this is obvious, look at that. And so with these two channels defining life force within the transits, we have this intuition that is gently penetrating into the knowledge, fixed with the ability to express itself. And on the other side, we have the willingness to respond to shock and jump into the void. Truly, at this moment, I do wonder what is happening around the world. There could be countless people out here in the world today that are having some intuitive sparks of insight, and they are doing something unexpected or different. And so if you're paying attention to the program, then I have to hope, I must hope, that you're in touch with your own inner authority and type strategy. Because if you are not aware of how to make decisions correctly as yourself, if you do not know your type strategy and inner authority, then what's going to happen easily, what could happen, is that you'll have this drive, this push that's coming either unconsciously or consciously. Your mind could become fixated on something, and all of a sudden you have to go do this thing. Or you have to win at something, and it might feel really important. It might feel like your life depends on it. And the difference is, when you actually wait for the correct timing of your decision-making mechanism as a unique human being, instead of this insight that can be communicated that is compelling you to jump into the unknown being something that hurts you or others, instead of that, because you know how to make decisions as yourself, you can take advantage of this transit, and you can recognize, ooh, there's an energy in the air at this very moment that is not always here. You know, you might have centers defined or connected up together that are not always connected. And say, for example, if you're a generator waiting to respond like I am, if you listen to your mind tell you that you have to initiate this thing, because after all, this is the channel of initiation, this 2551. If you feel like you need to initiate something in your life now, rather than respond to life's timing, then it won't work out, fundamentally. Whereas if you can trust the timing of life and trust your own inner yes-no guidance mechanism, then you'll recognize that your insight can be shared, that you can be competitive, you can jump into the unknown and achieve success. And something important of note here is that success is not exactly what we think it is. You see, we have an old school, seven-centered, deeply strategic perception and idea of what success is, you know? Like here in the West, here in America, you want to have a big house with a white picket fence, big empty garden. Rather, it's not even a garden, it's a front yard is what they call it. And perhaps you have like a wife and you have a bunch of kids and you're going to work and you got this nice car, and that's success in the Western American vision of life. And that's not what we are anymore. We are nine-centered human beings. We have the openness to a degree of receptivity that has not been possible in about 90,000 years. So imagine that for a moment. There is knowledge, there is awareness and wisdom that has not been available for 90,000 years. 90,000 years. And in this moment, you could recognize something that has been lost to time. I'd love to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of interesting people out here. And so this is a nine-centered world. We are no longer limited by the old school strategies, and success does not have to mean what we thought it meant. Success could simply be that when you want to, you could take a nap for 12 hours. And there's nothing wrong with that. It could be in the middle of the day, it could be whenever you want. It could be that you want to be able to buy a plane ticket to Bali whenever you want. It could be that you want to have that family around you at home to return to. Whatever it is for you, you can find it following your strategy and authority. This is how we make decisions correctly as an individual, differentiating human being. And so this transit is very profound on that level in a universal sense. However, for me specifically, there are a lot of nuggets, a lot of points that are interesting. And so you'll see now that I've changed the picture. In blue on this chart, you'll see my body graph. And in this yellow color, you'll see the transit. Transit like right here, right there, a little bit there. And all this blue is my own natural definition. And so I'm conventionally, as I was born, a split definition generator. With this transit, that has changed. And it doesn't mean that I have changed, like it's not like the consistency within me is no longer consistent, because it is. What's happened is that instead the transits are laid upon that, and there is now extra bridges, there's extra railroads, there's extra lines of energy transportation between the energy centers that turns me personally into a single definition. And there's some very specific connections in here that are, for me, profound. One of which that I'm seeing first is this 32. There's a 32 in the transits hooking up to my 54. And now this is a channel of transformation. This 54th gate is the gate of ambition, classically called the marrying maiden. And so this is about rising up the hierarchy. This is about the need to be touched by the higher forces of life. The need to be recognized, the need to rise up, not simply in social structures, but in your own relationship to higher powers in life. And this 32, this is the scent and the smell, the sniffer, to be able to know which ambition is genuine, which ambitions can actually bring us into a transformed state where things are not as they were before and they have actually improved. They have risen up to a higher order of things. And so not only is that defining my spleen to my root right here, it is then also part of this circuitry climbing up to the throat. And then this 23 to the 43. This is something I have been noticing for a few months now, or at least weeks. This is the planet Uranus in the 23rd gate, and it'll be here for a little while. This is defining my Ajna center. With this Ajna definition, I now have a consistent way of expressing what I think and see that isn't conventionally there. My own individual insight. For you see, the 43rd gate, right up here in the Ajna, is all about the individual's insight into a vibration that cannot be heard. It is as if there is a sound that is so quiet, it doesn't make any noise. And this 43 is able to actually hear it. It can sense the difference in some way. What the 23 does is it takes a vibration and it actually breaks it down into constituent elements, and then it puts those elements back together in a way that can be communicated and understood by another person. And so personally, I have really appreciated having this 23 for my 43. Because I'm thinking in a more consistent way. I'm thinking in a more consistent way. I'm seeing in a more consistent way. And I'm communicating in a more consistent way. And I deeply appreciate it, honestly, personally. And then over here, my 51 is actually being compromised by the transits in definition with the 25. And personally, I'm not concerned whatsoever about the compromise here. I can look into, I have a 51 and I could look into the other 51 and be kind of interested in the nuances of the differences there. I really don't care. What I care about is the fact that there's a 25 defining my sense of self. For you see, I normally have an undefined G center, the sense of self and the sense of direction in life. And so my mind no longer has, in this moment, direct access to the amplification field of, I need to find love outside of myself. Because I've got a fixed direction. And so this 25 is such a fascinating one. It's actually down here in an exalted form, the line of selflessness in the gate of the spirit of the self, also called innocence. This is the universalization of activity, psychic attunement that is its own reward, the potential for centering through attunement to challenges. Psychic attunement that is its own reward. You see, this is something that's going through all of us in the moment that I'm recording this. There is the potential to have a psychic attunement to life. You know, your psyche being able to pick up on other psyches and being able to share information, you know, being able to enter a field greater than your own limited consciousness. That is available to us all in this moment as I record this. So I hope that you're accessing that in a good way. Because for me, it has been quite a profound feeling, you know. I'm feeling deep pressure welling up from the inside that sparked me to record this in the first place. Because of how profound it is to have this brainwave of initiation coming through the transits and then interfacing with my own system and having the impacts upon me. This 5720 only came into effect a few hours ago, earlier today, on the 11th of April, 2024. And it's always fascinating to me how these things work, because the timing of things is very interesting. Sometimes it feels like, in my own personal sensoriated experience of life, that I might have picked up on a transit maybe a few minutes or an hour before it happened. In today's case, I feel like I've picked up on this energy about an hour or two after it happened, in which it started to come through me and I was seeing it. It's like, wow. Because there were these interesting little things in life. I was dealing with some frustration on technical issues for a few hours, and part of me simply wants to laugh at it. And I find such a deep joy in being able to laugh at the problems that arise in my life as a third line being. Being able to witness a hardship or a challenge or something show up where it's like, I want to hop on my computer and record this episode so I can share some information with you all. And then I spend about an hour or two dealing with technical issues, trying to even get it set up. Lo and behold, I don't even record what I had planned on recording because these transits are having an impact on me. And I felt like it was more important to share what is in the transit at this moment than what I had before. You see, there's a lot of profound energies in here. There's an exaltation in the sun, the line of identification in the gate of growth and increase. This is the 42nd gate. You see, this gate is right down here in the sacral center, pointing down to the root. This is the recognition and acute capitalization of trends, the power for growth through participating in trends. So if you're doing any kind of social media or something like that, this could be a good day to share something, to pick up on a trend, because if there's something trendy or popping, it could be a good time to share. We've got some detriments in here as well. However, I want to look at the other exaltation first, this 23-1, this line of proselytization. This is the sage who in the extreme can defend evil as part of the greater good. the powerful expression of an insight which will undermine established values. And so I'm going to take a moment with that and kind of unpack some of it. So we have a sage who can actually defend evil as part of a greater good. How is that possible? Isn't evil simply bad? Don't we want to eliminate it or something? Well, in fact, that's not the case. That was old school, seven-centered, strategic, black and white, binary thinking. And it's simply not what we're here for. For you see, there is this thing called relativity. What is evil to the fly is good and natural to the spider. It is the relativity of perspective in this cycle of life. And so if there is an evil that is pretending to be good, and it is an established order, such as, governmental agencies or corporate lobbying, then there is a position that will defend what is obviously seen as perhaps evil, in order to end the corruption of something that is pretending to be good, so that the greater good can actually unfold. And this is why it says, the sage who in the extreme can defend evil as a part of the greater good. It is in the extreme. This is our place as nine-centered beings, is finding the extreme. And not only being within the extreme, there is the capacity to be within these situations at rest. Where somebody can get into a car accident and they may not be physically hurt whatsoever. They could be mentally all out of sorts. What am I going to do? I can't believe this happened. Blah, 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 blah. Somebody else could get into a car accident. They could even get hurt. It could be serious. And if they're a true yogi, they're not going to be flipping out. They're not going to be making the situation worse than it is. They're going to have this capacity to be within the extreme situation of, I've been in a car accident and I've been hurt, and it's okay. Even through this, I can breathe. Even through this, I can breathe. I'll look at the 57 now in Detriment, the line of confusion. This is that gate of insight, of gentle insight, penetrating into the awareness. And this is the line of confusion. This is the first line of the 57. Now that's fascinating. The first line lays the foundation for what comes above. And this is the line of confusion, and it only has a detriment, and it's from the moon. And it is read here as the moon in detriment, where feelings are no substitute for clarity and can lead to indecision. The possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition. And so there's quite a bit that's going on in there. So the very foundation of gentle, intuitive insight, where does it come from? Well, it comes from this awareness that your feelings are not a substitute for your clarity. And that if you're listening to your feelings and responding to them in the moment without waiting for clarity, then you're dealing with confusion that can overpower you. And I know I was feeling this. When I was starting to recognize something about this psychic attunement that brought me into recording this, I was definitely feeling some confusion. It's like, what is going on in here? I had to look up the transits to get a peek at what was going on. So I suppose a takeaway from this is that if you wish to enhance your own intuitive awareness, regardless of your design, do not simply act upon feelings. Trust clarity. There is a difference here, because feelings are more of an empowered, moving, right now force. Whereas clarity is more like a still pond where you can see your reflection within it, and it's obvious who you are. And essentially that's the foundation of intuition. Another detriment right here in the 63, this is the gate of doubt and the line of affirmation, a tendency in triumph to pay lip service to such values. And given such leadership, these values will be reduced to nothing more than empty rituals, doubting one's very process despite understanding. We see this is an interesting one. It makes me think of how they say it is the victor of a battle who writes the history. So when we have a war within two parties and one party wins, it is the winner who gets to decide what the history books will say about the other party, depending on how far the war went. And so this 63rd gate, after completion, I do believe, this 63rd gate is right here in the logical circuitry. This 63rd gate, as part of logical circuitry, is here to make sense of the patterns of life so that they can go forward in a good way. And this form of doubt can actually come out victorious over other forms, over the oppressors or the other parties, whatever it may be. They can come out victorious and then doubt their own abilities after the fact. They could also simply perform rituals and services that are empty, hollow, and shallow. Because the thing about these gates is that they're a deep binary. They're this deep binary of this and that. And so while this is the line of affirmation, it could also have this quality of denial to it. There's no way, that's not good enough, I doubt this way too much, it's not possible, I doubt, what about this, what about that, what about this, what about that? On and on and on and on. And as a fifth line, this is here receiving all the positive expectation, pressure from everybody else. So if it can't deliver practically, if it can't wait for clarity, if it's acting on its feelings, then it lacks its intuitive insight to even be truly logical. The 20th, the dogmatist, the power to lead others down a narrow path, the gift through expression of leading others down a narrow and restrictive path. Let's see what the neutrino design I Ching has to say on this one. Bias, a narrow and rigid mindset that ignores or dismisses information or perspective that do not fit with one's own beliefs or views. For example, refusing to consider other points of view or to learn from new experiences or information. So right here, we're seeing another detriment of either bias or dogmatist. So it makes me think of a defined Ajna center. And I know this is a 20th gate in the throat, and it's not even pointed to the Ajna. However, this specific detriment of this narrow path, this inability to see the other side, this can be characteristic of a defined Ajna. For the defined Ajna has access to certainty. Doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean they have clarity even. They can simply be certain that within their own narrow path, they're right. And so, as a reminder for all of us in this moment and going forward in the future in a good way, is to be open for what other perspectives other perspectives have to share, have to say. Because if we find ourselves rigid and focused down this specific thing, we can lose sight of the big picture. And on the other side of things, because it's always a binary, on the other side of things, a narrow path doesn't have to be bad. It can be free from distractions and down the specific exact path. And this could be the right path to succeed, at least for the time. And then maybe you'd have to be able to shift later on. Maybe you can get away with staying the same forever. I don't think it's likely, though. The only consistent thing we have in this life is change, and our body graph. Because your body graph doesn't change, and these transits, they're always changing. Got another detriment right here, another 63 in the 4. And now this is the memory line of 63. A willingness to forget in the glow of victory with a possible price to be paid later. The pressure and risk to forget the details when the doubts have been answered. Right there you see something fascinating about the human system. The fact that there is no exaltation to this line in the map. It was not recognized by Ra that there was an exaltation to this, merely that there's a detrimental, that once you have succeeded, once you have won, there is a tendency to forget the details. And that's the thing, is that's why it can be so hard to actually rise up and succeed in a continuous way, is because you have to be present. You have to truly breathe through your life and pay attention. No one else can do it for you. And so even when you succeed in life, that is not an excuse to be lazy. It is not an excuse to stop caring about your life. You see this a lot with men who get married to a beautiful woman, and then they stop caring about themselves and they gain weight and they're just drinking beers and whatever, because they've already in their eyes succeeded. And they've forgotten the details of how they got there or what made it so special or real in the first place. And so in order to differentiate ourselves, we have to be able to remember why we have succeeded, not only why we have failed. Genetically, it's been a survival strategy that we remember why we failed. We remember why our ancestors died even. That is inside your genetics, is all the deaths of your ancestors. And if you take that stuff seriously, it can drive you to paranoia that causes you to die in one of those same ways. Whereas if you can make decisions from your strategy and authority correctly as a differentiating being, then even if you do forget the details of your success, you know how to make decisions going forward, and it doesn't matter. Because you know who you are. And ain't nothing anybody can tell you that'll change that. All right. Well, I feel like that's about all I have for the transit in the moment. Thanks for sharing and watching along with me, enjoying this movie talking about the transits, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Take care. Bye for now.